Hey everybody, Frugal Farmer here. This is Frances Bavier, better known as Aunt B on the Mayberry show. Well, in her later years, she retired to North Carolina to a town called Siler City. Siler City is northwest of me, probably not quite an hour. I lived in Sanford, which is north of me an hour and almost the geographic center of the state. And also, there's a little place called Gulf in Sanford, and that's where Charlie Daniels is from. Well, Siler City and Sanford are probably 15 miles apart. Well, if you remember my buddy Craig and all the misadventures we got into, we had to do the math on it. Craig came to my high school. He was in ninth grade and I was a senior, but for whatever reason, he and I got to be friends. And we did a lot in that year that I was still in high school. Well, when I graduated, I still kept in touch with Craig, and on some summers he worked on different jobs I was on if I could get him a job. And during the school year, if he was off on a Friday, I'd come get him. He'd ask his mom if he could go stay with me, and so we'd have a weekend of just mayhem. We'd just have all kind of fun, not really getting into any trouble. Well, so I thought. The first time Craig stayed with me, I was staying in this ratty trailer, and the people who owned it owned a restaurant, and they had a freezer on the porch, which I was paying the electrical bill for, where they kept food for their restaurant. Well, that Friday, I got Craig on that Thursday night and went back because I had to work that Friday morning. Well, Craig, he'd clean up everything, and he'd have my dirty clothes, everything ready to go. We'd run up to the washerette and have all that done, and he just a great house guest to have. Well, I came in and he had hamburgers cooking in the oven. And he said, "Man," he said, "I forgot the buns." He didn't have no way to drive. He didn't even have his driver's license. I didn't think too much of it. And I asked him how he got them. And he said, "Where do you get food from?" And so I'm not thinking about that freezer on the porch. We'll get into that a little bit more so later. Well, come to find out, there were steaks in the freezer. Well, we just sat around and had a good time. We rode up toward Raleigh, rode around, and got lost. It weren't like it was back in these days. You kind of had to have a general knowledge of where you were going. We'd see something look interesting, we'd pull in there and see what was there. Well, we'd got to talking, and that Sunday on the way back, he said, "Let's go see Aunt B." She was staying in Siler City then. And that was just a ride off the road we were on, so let's do it. So we go into Siler City, and we see a police officer. Craig had a way of talking. He could be very well spoken. Well, and he looked so young because he was short. And he told the officer that he was up there, and for extra credit, he had to take a picture of Aunt B's house. Well, the officer, he said, "Look," he said, "she gets disturbed." Said, "I'm not going to give you." He said, "My daddy lives right down the road from her, and I'm not going to tell you." Well, Craig would get a real polite way about him, but there was a lot of stuff going on in his mind that I couldn't keep up with. And he said, "I completely understand, sir. Thank you." The officer left. He said, well, before the officer left, he told me, he said, "Well, let's get some lunch and then we'll leave." And I've never known him to give up that easy. So the officer left. He said, "Let's go find a payphone." Well, the officer's name tag showed who he was, and we narrowed it down to one street. And we said, "This got to be the street." So we got on there, and we were finally were able to find her house. Well, we walked up and knocked on the door, and he asked her, was Mr. Such and Such, who was the cop's daddy, is this where he lived at? And she was super polite. And I mean, it was Sunday morning. She was fixed up. I mean, this lady answered the door. She was, I mean, her hair was immaculate, you know, just a beautiful woman the way she carried herself. Excuse me. Well, uh, he said, "Ma'am, weren't you on the Andy Griffin show?" And she just smiled and said, "Yes." He said, "Could I have an autograph, please?" And sure enough, he got an autograph with her. And he apologized profusely for disturbing her. And he said, "We're going to get out here and see the," I can't remember the last name of the guy. So anyway, we left, and that was our encounter with Aunt B. They said she could be very fickle and that she really didn't like her time on the Andy Griffin show, but that's what kind of got her more so famous as an actress. She was a New York stage actress, and I think she kind of felt that was beneath her, and she had studied hard to get to that point, and I could kind of halfway understand that. But she lived out her later years there and left quite a bit of money to the Siler City Police Department, and every year they give away an endowment off that money as a bonus to their officers for her generosity. And they auctioned off the contents of her house, I guess, to fund that 100,000. And the I want to go over there and buy Craig something, but I never made it. But we accomplished our goal in no small part to Craig. All I did was drive. He was the brainstorm behind it. But back to the food. Well, that next night we had steaks. I'm not thinking there ain't no grocery store near this trailer. But I'm thinking Craig got somebody to carry him there. Didn't really, I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't ask a whole lot. So it was, I'd moved and he came up to my new place. He said, "Well, I like this a lot better than the old place." He said, "I didn't like them people making you pay for the electric bill for that freezer." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I should have charged him something, or at the very least got some food." And he busted out laughing. When he busted out laughing, I knew, and he wouldn't have kept it from me. He forgot. I have no doubt he forgot, but he told me, "So you remember those hamburger and steaks we ate?" I said, "No, you didn't." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I got them from the bottom so they wouldn't recognize that anything was amiss in there." He said, "Well, I guess you get a little bit of your money back." But that was classic Craig, though. Thanks for stopping by. Come back again when you will. Share, comment, like, hit that subscribe button. God bless.